Today we are excited to welcome some guests from Peter's Place, a really awesome nonprofit that I just recently learned about, but we're going to learn a lot more about them shortly. Before we jump in, I want to give you guys a little bit of a background on who we have speaking today. From Peter's Place, we have Trish Corvo. She earned her bachelor's degree in journalism from Temple University and her master's in education from Villanova. She has over 19 years of fundraising experience working for organizations such as the Philadelphia Zoo and the Orchestra, the Curtis Institute of Music, and the Girl Scouts of Eastern Pennsylvania. Most recently, Trish served as Director of Advancement at a Step Up Academy, a school for students with autism, where she successfully launched the school's fundraising program and led all development efforts and community partnerships. She lives in Lansdale, PA, with her husband, Joe, and their 10-year-old son, Carter. And in addition to Trish, this is one of our first sessions where we have two speakers. So y'all are getting a treat today. So in addition to Trish, we also have Joseph Kelly joining us from Peter's Place. Joseph earned his master's degree in clinical psychology from Westchester University. He began his time with Peter's Place as an intern and outreach coordinator from '06 to '08. Joseph then spent the next 10 years as a mental health therapist at Valley Forge Military Academy and Cabrini University before returning to Peter's Place as their director of programs in 2018. Joe maintains a private practice at ACAC Fitness, where he works with teens and young adults, combining exercise and talk therapy. He's also an adjunct professor in the counseling graduate program at Arcadia University. Joe is a member of the American Counseling Association, Pennsylvania Psychological Association, National Alliance of Children's Grief, and the Association for Deaf Education and Counseling. He's a licensed professional counselor in the state of Pennsylvania. So that's just a little bit about our two speakers, and I'm going to hand it over to them to tell you a little bit about Peter's Place.
Again, my name is Joseph Kelly, Director of Program at Peter's Place. Peter's Place is located in Radnor, Pennsylvania. We were founded in 2001 following the death of Peter Morsbach, who was 10 years old when he died in 1999. Essentially, Peter's family, was really in need of a space where they could connect with other families who were navigating the death of an important person to them. They looked around and there was no such place. So as fantastic as they are, they decided to, partner with community members and friends and created Peter's Place. Our doors actually opened on September 12th of 2001, so very apropos. And we are celebrating our 25th anniversary year this year, so pretty amazing. Today, I will share an overview of the services that we provide at Peter's Place, and Trish will follow with a little bit of how we fund all this stuff. How are we able to do this? So I'll begin with this slide, which this is the childhood bereavement estimation model. So when you talk about a peer grief support center, perhaps the first question is, are we meeting a need in the community? There is data that suggests that in the state of Pennsylvania, 1 in 11 children will have experienced the death of a parent or a sibling by the age of 18. And that number will double by the age of 25. Notice that I mentioned the death of a parent or a sibling. However, at Peter's Place, we support families who are navigating a death of an important or a significant person in their life. So that may be a parent or a sibling, and frequently it is a parent. However, the death of a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a close family friend are also bring families to our services. So if you consider those types of relationships as well, that number of 1 in 11 is probably going to be a little bit higher, right? So we are meeting this need in the community, and the loss experience, in fact, is a pretty universal one. I believe we can all regard that. So we're very proud to be able to not only provide a space for these families to support one another, but also to be able to do things like this and educate the community and normalize the conversation about grief support. This is a neat little map of the of who we serve, the majority of our families. So if you look at Delaware County, we're like the northern tip. That's where Radnor is, right? The majority of our families that attend our services here in Radnor, you see, would be embodied in that green circle. So it's about a 10 to 15 mile radius. We do have families that traverse outside of that, but that's the bulk of our families. So you see, we support families in the greater Philadelphia and the greater 5 county region. In addition to our, and I'll go into details about this, in addition to our on-site groups, we're also in schools throughout the 5 county region as well. And the majority of our schools, you can see kind of bordered by that orange figure. I don't know what geometric figure that is. So, typically about half of our schools would be located in southern Delaware County, and about the other half would be in Philadelphia County. Again, we also serve, schools in Chester, Montgomery, and sometimes Bucks if we can make that a good use of our time because it's a little bit of a trek. What we bring to the groups here at Radnor and to the schools and to the communities through our trainings is a little bit of our philosophy of the grief experience, right? So when people talk about their grief or death, the connotation can be really negative. It can be loss experience. It can be sadness. It can be emptiness. It can be, viewed as this like really deep problematic experience that people are having. But at Peter's Place, we regard grief to be a natural reaction to a death, not a pathological one. So all of those messy feelings that one may feel is part of a natural expression when we experience the death of an important person in our life. We recognize that grief is lifelong and unique. So grief doesn't look the same in two people. Just because I may be tearful doesn't mean that if Trish is not tearful, that somehow she's not grieving. So we respect the autonomy and the self-directedness of each individual. And the goal of grief is not to get over it or finish with it. It is part of our story. And the goal perhaps is to recognize that it is part of our lives. Within each person lies the natural capacity to heal. This is, again, there's no medication, right, to take that will cure this grief. There's no information that me as a professional can impart to you that would somehow fix you, right? Everything that you have within you is enough to navigate this grief process. I mentioned the goal is not to fix anything, it's to facilitate a healthy relationship with one's grief. And then we also use normalizing language. So you may have already heard I've used the words death and died. Families, when they attend our groups, often kind of like give an initial look when they hear us use these words, but then it communicates to them that these are words that are able to be spoken. So what do we do? Peter's Place utilizes a peer support group model. So what we do is not regarded as counseling or therapy. It's not individual. It is a peer support group. We serve children ages 4 through high school and the adult that brings them. Our services, look at that, no cost to the families. So removing that barrier, particularly for those families who have experienced the death of an earner, is really important. It's one of our favorite things to let families know when they ask, so do you take insurance? We go, actually, there's no cost. They go, wow. And our groups follow an academic calendar year. So we have just started our groups, and they will roll through the end of May. We do divide our groups by age. So we have our 4 to 6s, our 7 to 10-year-olds, 11 to 13, which is essentially middle school, and then our high school, so 14 through 18. In addition to the groups for our kids, when the adult brings the child, they also have a group that runs at the same time for them. The purpose of that group is for the adults to not only share about their own grief experience and the process themselves, but also to talk about what it's like to raise a grieving child or children. Um, Another thing, an element of our service is that we're not just like sitting around in a circle and talking with our groups. There are so many ways that we express ourselves as human beings, and particularly as young people. So what we do is some talk based, but we use games, we use play, we use arts and crafts and books, all of these things to enable our young people to express themselves in the way that they wish. All right. I mentioned that we have our groups here, on site. They follow an academic calendar, and it's a really amazing program that we run here. However, we also bring our services out into the community. So I mentioned we do host groups in schools in the Greater Philadelphia region. Um, those school groups look a little bit different. They do take place during a class period during the school day. And as opposed to running all throughout the year, our school groups occur in 3 cycles. There's a fall cycle that goes from October to December. There is a winter cycle that goes from the end of January to about March. And then there's a spring cycle that goes from like end of March, April through the end of the academic year. So a little bit different, but it enables us to meet the needs of more young people. We, on average, we are in about 30 to 35 schools a year, and we run about 35 to 45 school groups. Outside of our groups, we are approved providers for continuing education units for marriage and family therapists, social workers, and professional counselors in the state of Pennsylvania. And we are also approved providers for Act 48 credits for school staff. So trying to make ourselves as attractive as possible when we provide these professional development offerings. We have a menu of offerings, anything from, running a grief group to Grief 101 to supporting students who are grieving. And we have a webinar series that we market as well throughout the year. 2 more things and then I'm done. We also can, when we're able to, because we are, we're not the largest nonprofit, we're able to support schools and communities with postvention services. Now, this is when there's more often than not a sudden and unexpected death in a school or a community. And we're able to connect with that school. I'll just use a school as an example. To talk about the school's response to that death. And this could look like anything from support for faculty, support for parents, support for the students, and maybe if there's a student that has died, perhaps what are the supports that we can extend to their peer group. So this really helps to support schools to support themselves in response to a death of a member of their community. And lastly, as a response of the pandemic, one advantage that we took the opportunity for was to create virtual adult groups. This is just an expansion of the heart of our services. I will share that our virtual adult group offerings, you see them right there for the fall. We have 2 separate offerings. There is an infant loss as well as a child loss group. And in the spring, there will be a spousal loss group. So if you'd like any more information about that or any of our other programs, please, you may visit our website. Take it away, Trish.
All right. So how I wouldn't be a development director if I didn't give a slide of ways to support Peter's Place. So like Joe said, we are all of our programming is completely free for our families and students. So how do we fund our programming? Through donations, foundations, corporations. We do have 2 events a year, our Fall Fest event, which is coming up on Sunday, October 19th from 1 to 4. It is our family community event. We also offer sponsorships, ticket sales, raffles. And then coming up is our 25th anniversary benefit auction, which is Saturday, April 25th at Aronimink. We are one of the last events at Aronimink before the PGA Tour. So if you wanted to get a glimpse of what Aronimink looks like for the PGA Championship, come to our event. And Fall Fest, it's a fun activity. I included a little slide with pictures. Hopefully we have a beautiful day this year like we did last year. This is our second year with Fall Fest. We have the pizza wagon. All of the activities and food is included in the ticket price. We have a pizza wagon, pumpkin decorating, cooking decorating. We have a program activity because we do like to include program elements in all of our events at Peter's Place. We'll have a DJ, the Villanova mascot will be there, and the cheer team, dance team as well. And then other ways you can support, we have an Amazon wish list. We just had a giving day on Friday where we have people buy items on our wish list that kind of help offset costs for going into our program year. It was very successful. And then, of course, we have our annual fund as well. The cash donations are nice too. And then ways to volunteer. We offer corporate volunteer days if you and a group want to come out. We offer cleaning up our healing garden. We had Vanguard out a couple of weeks ago, and they actually painted our parking lot for us, which is a huge expense cutting. I think we got a quote and it was very expensive. So they came out and helped paint our parking lot. We have a healing garden on site where a lot of families come if they just need a moment. They can go outside, and we offer volunteers to help come weed that because that is a huge, huge task if it gets overgrown. And then we also offer group facilitator volunteer opportunities as well, where we have about 2 to 3 volunteers per group on our on-site and vendor come and help support our staff with groups. So there's our website if you want more information on how you can support us. I think I covered everything, right, Joe?
Yeah, thank you. So that questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know I have a couple questions, but I'll let anyone else who has one go first. If anyone else has one. I'll jump in there with one question I had. And I guess you kind of answered this in terms of you dealing with like schools. I think there was like, I don't know what the word was there. It was like post
pension.
Yeah. Is that across the board? Like, do you even handle, let's say, for example, if there's a shooting? And I know that's happened a lot in some of our Philadelphia schools. Have you like handled some of those scenarios or been brought in some of those scenarios?
Yeah. The first and foremost is about the safety, right, of everyone. So the timing of those services can look different based on that. Just, you want to ensure that first. So it's like that hierarchy of needs. However, when we communicate with schools like that, first things first is about like, have you communicated and messaged notification to the school community already? And what are you planning to do, right? Like, so there would be a lot of administrative support insofar as like, here are the considerations that could be specific to this experience. There's likely to be a lot of media, right? Are we able to identify, the students that maybe are more potentially traumatically impacted by this and ensure that they're connected with services immediately, right? So, and then what plan do we want going forward? Because, whereas we don't provide crisis services, we can help with this like layout of embedding continued support throughout the community following that. But yes, on occasion, the nature of the death is the death of a student by gun violence. Yeah.
Yeah, I know often when I hear that, they say that, the school's bringing in resources from other schools and other avenues to come and help, with the large student population. Like there two or three counselors on staff really isn't enough to
Right.
take care of folks. So I was curious about that. And then one other question I had, I know for the virtual adult loss groups, um, I noticed you had a infant and child. Do you also, I guess, focus at all on like folks that are dealing with miscarriages and like
Um,
loss before birth?
the virtual adult group offerings rotate a little bit based on what we're seeing or hearing from the community. We have not um, hosted a group for those who experience the miscarriage. However, and this is a great thanks for that, because another service that we do provide for anyone who is curious about seeking support is we're really well connected with loads of other organizations that have areas of specialty. I can think of three right off the top of my head that I would send a warm handoff, to someone looking for a group for that population. So yes, please, even if it's not, receiving services directly through us, at least allow us to serve you as a connect to that, so you're not running around.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have some questions?
I have a question. So what are some of the signs that would tell you that somebody needs your services or needs that support?
Um, you know, I feel the loss experience sometimes can be really isolating, um, or perhaps that you know people don't quite know how to do this. Like I still miss my person. Like, is that okay, right? Like, and so it's like, would you like a place where you can talk about your person and you can talk about how you feel? Would you like a place where there are other kids around your same age who themselves have had a person die? Do you think that that would be something that you would like to do? And you don't have to have the yes. You could be like, would you like to learn more about it, right? And then families can come in for an intake. I don't believe that there's an a primary indicator. Again, the grief experience is a normative experience and a natural reaction to a death. So I think that our services are for anyone, any young person who's experienced the death of an important person in their life. It's I would hope that something like this would be offered to them.
Thank you.
I have a question. My son's on the spectrum, verbal and high functioning, but sometimes social etiquette is challenging for him. So the person he's named after died about a year ago, and we were telling him, so he'll like kind of just like blurt it out, and when it comes to his mind, when he's thinking about it, especially around like the widow, and there's not that sensitivity or understanding how that impacts people. So I'm just really curious, like from your perspective, how do you help people, neurodiverse populations, kind of navigate this experience so that they can still express themselves and share their thoughts and feelings, but also recognize some of those social conventions of like, when is it appropriate to talk about, I just found that I kind of stumbled upon that myself and was like, oh, this is interesting. And I don't want to shut him down from talking about it, but I also want him to think about, like he'll be very frank. He'll be like, so-and-so is dead. And I'm like, yes, that's true. But I'm like, you might want to not say that in front of their former spouse, because that can really make them emotional and upset. So it's like, how do you support kids in different ages, different abilities, different needs? Yeah.
I mean, you get a group of 7-year-olds together, it's going to be a little unpredictable in general. To be honest with you, no, not really, no tongue in cheek there. Yeah. So we have recognized an increase in that population, neurodivergent population, in our groups, and we do our due diligence to make sure that we're up to, the most current level of training, in that field. So, we just recently were trained by members of the Kinney Center for Autism out of St. Joe's. So, we stay on top of it as staff. It's a really tricky thing because our volunteer base who, help to facilitate groups, we don't ask them to be applied behavior analysis, analysts. And that is also not quite the nature of the work that we do. So, however, every young person is unique, right? And every circumstance is unique. So we encourage all families to come in for that initial intake. They can see the space. We can talk to the young person. And we always are open to say, yeah, let's give this a shot and let's communicate, are there strategies at home or in school that are helpful with redirection? Are there tools that help regulate that we can, bring to the group experience? And then we just see how it goes from there. In addition to that, we do have a bunch of resources, again, that we pulled together. And if that's something that we get into a school counselor's hands so that they can work individually with that young person with this enhanced, kind of grief knowledge, that's another area in which we can help. Was that an all right answer, Trish? Is there anything okay.
That was perfect. I mean, we have applied for grants recently, and we found, doing some statistics within the past few years, I think we've increased serving our neurodiverse population by over 30%. So
well, that's wonderful. It's wonderful, and so grateful for the work that you all are doing. To what you had said earlier, just normalizing to talk about these things, I think is so important. Especially, as adults, we don't want to pass on our discomfort to the kids, right? And giving them space to freely express themselves and their emotions around their grief, I think, is so important. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
One other question I had, you mentioned you guys had an Amazon wish list, but you said something about a certain time period. Is that year round someone can participate?
Yeah, so we do update our giving list year round. We had a specific giving day on September 12th because it's the anniversary of us opening our doors. So that's why we do the giving day on September 12th, and it's the start of our program year. But we're constantly updating our wish list. I think my marketing person updated it today with a few more things.
Awesome. And if you could email me details on that, on Fall Fest, and the annual gala, when we send sort of a recap email to our folks and include that YouTube link, we'll include all that stuff.
Great.
As well, to try to get folks to participate. Thank you again, Trish and Joseph, for that great presentation and educating us on Peter's Place.